Alright, so as you can see, I got the rest of the holes drilled for the most part. I did all of that off camera. Basically the same thing, using the digital readout, finding the edges and moving over the required amount. A couple of things to note is I made some brass bushings, which are epoxied in the valve beam, the connecting rod. This is the main beam, and there's a 3/8 of diameter brass counterweight in the connecting rod crank. So the main beam, it's got that coffin shape, these two tapers on each end here, and I got a little bit of video of me cutting those tapers, and I just figured it would be something that I would elaborate on. Okay, so we're going to cut this taper just like we did on the other side. The only difference is that the distance here is greater than the jaws of the vise. So I just set up parallel ends, supporting it with the parallels here against the pin, and I set up a 1/16 gauge block here, a 116 thousandths gauge block, not a 1/16 of an inch, and it's resting between the parallel and the bottom of this piece of 3/16 drill rod here. So we're going to do it the same way, come down, and if the calculations are correct, it'll trim right off and blend into this point here. So let's go. Alright, let's pull it out and take a look. Okay, so now we'll flip this over and we'll do the same thing, and I'll keep you in the camera here, and so maybe this will give you a better idea what we got happening here. Like I said before, this I wouldn't be able to support this with the 4-inch vise, so I got these parallels. These are just proud of the tops of those jaws there. So and then I have this gauge block just sitting on this one side here, and just enough to support that, just to raise that up the required amount to get that angle, and just keep a little pressure on that, snug down the vise, and let's get this last end cut. Okay, so here we got the taper cut on both of these ends. I think that came out pretty nice, and got some number 43 holes drilled on the end there, and that'll be for some 256 brass bolts that I had just ordered. I guess the idea of that is to prevent these ends from splitting, so we'll do that. Got to make some brass bushings, 3/16 OD by 3/32 ID, and those will get epoxied in these 4 holes here. So alright, that'll pretty much wrap this up for this piece here for now. Okay, so I cut these 4 tapers in the mill using a router bit. And what I did was I just put 3/16 drill rod in each end and propped this end up. The thickness, it has to come off from here. So now it's a slight different amount because the 1/8 inch is at the very end of this piece of material, and the gauge pin, or the piece of drill rod that I used, is set back 5/16 of an inch from there. So it's not just a simple matter of putting an 1/8 inch gauge block under that and tip this end up. So a little trigonometry, and these are all the dimensions that come off of the plans. So basically we're looking for this angle here, and then we can determine the height of this later on. So I took 1/8 inch over 2 1/16, which is these two numbers added up. Use the inverse tangent, come up with an angle of 3.47 degrees. I rounded it out to 2 numbers, way overkill for this. And once we have that, now we can determine this height with the tangent times this distance here, which gave me the dimension of 106 thousandths of an inch. And in the first 2 tapers I cut here, I just placed 106 thousandths gauge block under this end. I did the same on the other side here, but the numbers are different obviously, and same thing, opposite over adjacent. The inverse tangent gave me 1.57 degrees. Plugged that into the formula and came up with the 116 thousandths of an inch that I needed to place on this gauge pin. So basically it just tipped this up this amount, and then this end would be parallel to the jaws of the milling machine vise, and that just got lopped off. So I hope that explains it clearly. Like I say, it really wasn't terrible, but it's just a good exercise to keep your mind working, and like I say, way more accurate and complicated than it really needs to be for a little piece of wood, but you know, it's sometimes it's fun to really think about how to go about making something that's fairly precision. So, okay.